Good morning, everybody. My name's Frank Norris, and this is the seventh edition of the Frank and Stan Chats. And you can see the guy in the top left-hand corner, Stan. Hello, Stan.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, and we have a guest today. Ishaa, would you like to introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name's Ishaa. I'm 18 years old and I'm a youth advocate. So I do a bit around youth activism in terms of it on climate and issues such as curriculum for life.
Okay, that's great. You are breaking up a little bit there, but we're going to carry on anyway. So if you do cut, if it cuts off, then we'll sort of just talk over you and fill it in while your connection's coming back. And I should warn everybody.
The general theme of things, won't it? We'll just talk over.
No, we want your voice, Ishaa. I mean, we don't want our voice. I hope that connection survives. But I have to say, the neighbour opposite always cuts his grass 9 o'clock on a Friday, every second Friday. And he hasn't started yet, but I'm sure he will as soon as we start talking. But we're just going to carry on. That's life. So, okay, we have some ground rules, which are basically no slagging off, no moaning about things. We have to appreciate that this is a very, very difficult time. None of us have been through this. Stan has people picked up last week, Stan.
Yeah, I changed the word last week by error, but this is with not having a script. I said nice instead of kind. We will be kind. We'll get back to being kind.
We're going to be kind. And I can hear the lawnmower cutting as I speak. Yeah, we're going to be kind. We're going to try. Well, we're going to be kind, but I think we do need to be challenging as well. We're going to be honest, because obviously this week's been a very, very interesting week. And I suspect that we've all got particular views on that, and that may come out of this next session. So, Stan, what's caught your eye this week?
Well, actually, something literally has caught my eye. I've got you may notice a bloodshot eye. I woke up one morning, my eye was completely...
Oh, wow.
So what's caught my eye with that is the how this virus has promoted and accelerated the use of technology, because I went to my doctor virtually. Right. I went onto the website, into a consulting room, left my details. Within 2 hours, my doctor rang me back, asked me to send photographs of my eye, which I did do. She then diagnosed it and spoke to me about 5 o'clock. So without leaving the home, I had the full diagnosis from my GP.
Wow, amazing, amazing. I mean, yeah, interesting taking a photograph of your eye.
I've got one. Don't worry, you don't want to see it.
Ishaa, caught your eye this week?
I would say what's caught my eye this week is the amount of protests there have been, not just in Britain but across the world. I think in terms of unifying causes, they're saying that these are the biggest demonstrations since the civil rights movement. So I think that's quite massive. A lot of people are still coming together, even though we have this virus about. That's not stopping people. So I think that's quite big.
So I mean, I was talking to my wife about it in terms of Stan and I are old enough, and my wife and I are old enough to know that actually these things come and go. It's whether or not they have a lasting impact. So obviously we all want these to have a lasting impact, but I mean, it's interesting. Do you feel as though this is more significant, just as significant as the climate change protests and stuff like that?
I think it's hard to compare them. I think they're both very crucial in different ways. I think for me, I would say it's difficult because I always thought Black Lives Matter as a protest I'd never have to do in my lifetime. I thought it'd already been done in the 60s and we already taught about it in schools. So the fact that it's coming up again is kind of like we thought we'd already dealt with this issue, whereas the climate crisis I feel like has never been given enough attention. So yeah. It's
interesting. I mean, I can get into a bit of the discussion now, if that's all right. Is that I know that you have pursued, because we've known each other for a number of years, because Ishaa was a senior student at one of the co-op academies in North Manchester, and you have pursued in that academy a very sort of democratic, youthful campaigning approach. And then you actually went off and became the youth member of parliament. Can you just say a little bit about that? Because what I want to do is say, why are we having to do a sort of more sort of demonstration approach and the climate change stuff, when in fact there's a democratic process of going to Parliament. So just say a little bit about your work with the Youth Parliament.
So in February 2018, I was elected as the Member of Youth Parliament for Manchester, and my term recently ended. And so I'm part of the Manchester Youth Council, and what we've been doing over the last couple of years is campaigning for the climate movement, the Fridays for Future movement. So I'm one of the coordinators for the Manchester Youth Strikes, and what we do is we mobilise young people together every Friday, and we protest for a better future, a greener future. And a lot of people say that, you know, what is the point in students doing this if there are already elected officials and elected leaders? And the
Yes.
point in the students doing it is raising awareness that young people do care about the climate issue, and that these are our demands is a bit harsh, but what we want to happen, what we need to happen. So on Fridays, that's what we do. We stand outside St. Peter's Square with our signs and we protest for a better future. Obviously, because of the quarantine, our plans have changed. So all the strikes we would have done are now online, digital. So we're adapting
Right.
with this current climate.
So, I mean, when was the last time you actually met? Was that at the beginning of the lockdown? You know, the last time just before the lockdown. So how many people were protesting at that time?
I think it would be around 50, but our biggest protest I think we had in September, we had a massive one. It was like a global strike kind of, and I think we had about, I think it was about like, it was like nearly 1,000-ish. Like we had like quite a lot of young people who joined us for that one.
Yeah. So I mean, so in a way, why is there a need to pursue the sort of more visible demonstration when you have a voice in Parliament, through the Youth Parliament, and that various things? So what drives you to demonstrate over and above the other sort of more democratic element of it?
I think with the Youth Parliament, it's very useful, but the fact that it's different in the fact that it's not like sitting Parliament, so you only get one opportunity in a single year in your term to sit with and discuss with other people across the nation about the issues you care about. Whereas to make actual change, you need to be regularly meeting with people and making sure that you're having your goals met for the future. And with the Youth Parliament, it's hard to do that. So that's why we need to get other young people on board, people who aren't necessarily even involved in Youth Voice, because that's what Youth Voice really is, engaging other young people and making sure their views are heard. So in having demonstrations, we're allowing other Mancunians, young Mancunians, to get involved with the cause and to tell us what they're thinking, because then we can relay that back to our Youth Parliament and our Youth Council, so they know what the young people's mood is in the city.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because in a way, I suppose the question is climate change, is racism and other areas, other aspects, is that actually covered well enough in schools? You know, you're at the tail end of your, in a sense, secondary school education, your sort of post-16 education. What's your view in terms of how much sort of how much importance is placed on the most important issues?
I think it's a hard one. I think you don't necessarily notice until someone points it out. So, for example, someone posted on Twitter, when was the first time in your life that you had a black teacher? And I actually had to genuinely think about it for some time, and I'm still not sure if I've actually had one or not. And I thought that's actually quite astonishing that I would never have realized it until someone actually asked you the question. And in terms of people were saying, like, I studied history GCSE and history A-level, and people did say how many of the historical figures you studied were women or people of colour. I thought that's actually a really good point, because very, very few of them were. And that's something I would never have realised, even though I'm not white. But then you don't realise, because that's just the way things are, and you don't realise until someone says to you, how many inspirational people were you taught about at GCSE or A-level? So yeah, that was quite interesting.
Yeah, I noticed on the Scottish Parliament there was a Scottish MP talking about the lack of diversity in senior university posts, senior local authority posts, senior judges, all of this sort of stuff. So I think it's really significant, isn't it, that in a way Stan and I have been over many years been looking at disadvantage and particular groups and how they are affected by the impact of the curriculum, you know, in terms of the attainment, but actually that we haven't really probably focused sufficiently in terms of the sort of the aspects of what is taught, you know. So it's all around outcomes in terms of achieving a GCSE result or whatever it may be.
The difficulty is the curriculum's designed around testing.
Yeah.
And so unless you can test something, it's not really valued as it should be in curriculum, in the design of schooling that we have now and we've had for some time. And particularly, I think, when we've got high risk testing, so that schools, if they don't achieve the results, are at risk and people's jobs are at risk, you then make decisions, probably wrongly, about the intake of your school, how long you can put up with some children who aren't working as well as they should do or aren't behaving as well as they should do. And the bottom line always seems to be, if it's going to affect our school results, we have to stop doing that, or we have to get rid of them, or we have to move on. And there's something morally wrong with the way we do that.
I think I'm interested, Ishaa, in terms of because I think Stan's right, but actually the way that the experiences you've had at secondary school have enabled you, I think, to have to prepare yourself for an active campaigning voice in society. I'm not trying to put words into your mouth, but I'm trying to sort of think that it's not about just the content, the history, the geography. You know, those are things that can be driven centrally. You know, say you've got to do this, and we can debate about what is in the history curriculum, what is in the geography curriculum, what's in the English literature curriculum. There's more than that, isn't there? There's more than that. There's the individual. And I don't know whether or not you feel as though some of that, you've been lucky that you've been to a school that actually has encouraged you to take a leading role.
I think definitely. With me, I was always very involved in things. I always like to, whatever club was happening, I'd like to get involved with it and do something about it. And I think it was good that I was encouraged to do that. And if there was a club that wasn't there that people wanted, then I would be happy to set it up and that kind of thing. And I think also when it came to like the later years, when you got to like prefect, head girl kind of level, you know, there's a lot of campaigns you tend to take on, and you need support from teachers to do that, otherwise it can't happen. So there were numerous times when I was in high school that I used to run everything by my head of year or head teacher or whoever, because there was always something I had to do, and I was always very aware that obviously school has regulations and rules and like whether certain students can do things or not. So I always had to make sure I run it by a teacher. And obviously at any point, if any of the teachers had said, no, that's a bad idea, you can't do that. And there are times that did happen. There are times I had ideas and the head teacher or my head of hall said, that's a bit too far, or that's not going to work with the school. But you always end up working together to find some kind of compromise or something like that, like whether it's raising awareness for charity or whether it's something else. I think there are a lot of opportunities that come with high school, but not every high school has the same opportunities. And I think for me, that's really annoying, because if I
Ishaa, you just say that again. I wish we could I will capture that. Stan, that's going to be the title of this.
I've already worked the title out, Frank.
That was awesome, Ishaa. That was awesome. Yeah, so just develop that a little bit more. You were saying that there are some schools, you know, provide you with those opportunities.
Yeah. So my like, well, not a concern, but then it is a concern in a way that if I had gone, because shouldn't have even gone to the school I went to. That was like my second choice. So if I had gone to a different school, I might have not ended up becoming the same person, which I know sounds a little bit stereotypical, but what I'm saying is that the opportunities I got from my school helped form me and prepare me for youth activism. And I think that, you know, it should be a standard that every school has the same opportunities, because then otherwise not everyone has the same chance in later life or in education. So for example, I was allowed to campaign for non-uniform day, and sometimes it's successful and sometimes it wasn't. And I think that not every student is encouraged to take their own initiative and given resources to kind of do that kind of thing. And I think if you're not encouraged, like if a teacher had said to me in the early days, like whether I was young or older, that, oh no, you should stop doing this, no, you might get in trouble, or it's not good to be too loud. Like there were teachers who did say to me, if you did what you did in other countries, you might be arrested. And I was well aware of that, but you know, it is the United Kingdom. And obviously if I had teachers who were all like that, if every teacher had said to me that, you know, you can't do that, then I wouldn't have, and I wouldn't be as outgoing. But I think
Ishaa, I've only met you today, but I am fairly assured already that if teachers had said you can't do it, I don't think that would have stopped you. Really. I think
Actually, it's learning though, isn't it? The behaviours of challenge, of how to cope with challenge and how to work with that challenge.
I think one of the issues is it goes back to our inspection days, Frank. Do you remember doing parents' meetings? And every parents' group I interviewed said that they thought they were really lucky with their school, but other schools, it must be terrible.
Yes.
So we have a view of other schools that are generated by other people. And actually, say we probably inspected 20 odd schools in that year. And every parents' meeting, the parents said, we're really lucky here.
Yeah.
It must be terrible in the other schools. It's
Yeah.
a notion that other schools don't provide what we do.
So how are you coping with lockdown, Ishaa?
It comes and goes. I think, like, in the beginning, I was really productive and I was doing a lot of meetings, and everything that I was doing before is now moved online, so it's all the same in a way. But then I think, like, later on, it can be a bit, like, upsetting. It does kind of kick in, you know.
Yeah. So in effect, what are your? I mean, have you been affected then? Are your plans for next year affected by the lockdown?
Massively. I'm going to university in September, so my A-levels were interrupted, so that was quite eventful. Yesterday should have been my biology A-level, but didn't fit it. It's quite interesting, but also scary, because my A-level results will be something I haven't sat the exam for, so it will be a bit foreign to me. And I think that university-wise, I'm planning to go to Manchester, but like even that's in the air, even though they've said I've got an offer and everything. But it's that kind of feeling, what if they don't accept me, if I don't do well anyway? There are all these uncertainties around it, so I'm in that affected stage.
It's a big challenge as well, going to university without the A level. It's not so much the exam, is it? It's all the preparation for the exam, the lead up to it, the handling of it, because actually those sorts of experiences are going to come to you at university, when actually, I'm not saying the stakes are high, I don't mean it in that way, but you kind of feel slightly out of it, because you've not had that primary A-level experience. Yeah. Okay, so what we'll do is, I think Isha's just about to, you're right there. Yeah. We've obviously caught her in the middle of a cold.
It's just hay fever.
Right, okay.
It can't be a cold. How can you catch a cold if we're all locked down?
Yeah, but the pollen still sort of flies around. Anyway, Ishaa, can I thank you for joining us? It's fantastic to see you again, and I've enjoyed. You are such a fantastic advocate for youth. And every time I hear you speak, it makes me wonder. It always makes me feel as though we've just got to give the youth voice much more prominence than we do. And I think your insights around climate change and BLM and all that sort of stuff is very, very interesting. And also the point about are there enough diverse teachers from diverse backgrounds teaching? My final thing on this, Dan, is I remember in introducing the 2010 framework for Ofsted, and I had to go to the Queen Elizabeth Hall, which is opposite Parliament, and there were 400 London head teachers there. I have to say, all of them were wearing grey suits, whether that was male or female. The vast majority of them were. And I do recall there was only 2 non-white head teachers in that, and that was in London. That was in 2010. And there's still so much to do to bring forward, talented young people from diverse communities into senior posts. It's not happening quickly enough. If we put all those head teachers in there now, there might be a much better range. I certainly think there would be, but whether it's good enough is another thing. But anyway, thank you, Ishaa. I'll post these.
Thanks, Ishaa.
Yeah, and thank you, Stan. And what we'll do is we'll just pause it there, and if there we go. Just